Hey, this is Tree from So Many Stadiums. This week we're going to talk about UT, that is the University of Texas in Austin. So before we go into the Austin experience, let's talk a little bit about UT's bona fides. So they do have 4 national championships, over 30 conference titles, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and 60 consensus All-Americans. There's a rich tradition at the University of Texas, and their numbers back that up. So UT is in the center of Austin, which is in the center of Texas. It's the hippest city in Texas, which is a lot like being the coolest accountant. No matter how cool you are, you're still an accountant. So you could fly to Austin, but let's be honest, it's probably cheaper to fly into Dallas or Houston and drive. I mean, you're going to have to rent a car anyway. The state of Texas seems to make public transportation a enemy number 1 of the oil and gas industry, so you're not going to find reliable public transportation anywhere. So a lot of the tailgating in UT is in downtown Austin, but it's on a first come first served basis, and that usually means Friday nights, which is difficult if you're flying in. For us, we were lucky enough to have a parking pass with our tickets, so we rolled in on Saturday morning to tailgate. Lots of rigs there, it was crowded, but it was also very hot. So the Longhorns play at Darrell K. Royal Stadium, or also known as DKR, named after their most successful coach.
I think you said DKR, but I think it's actually, I want to make sure I got this right. It was Joe Jamail Field at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium. Or actually, I wanted to get it right, so I looked it up. It was that, but they decided that was too short of a name. It's now Earl Campbell - Ricky Williams Field at Darrell K. Royal Texas. No, yeah, Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium.
It's a big stadium. It's been renovated. It's got a great big video scoreboard, but even better are the video ribbons around the stadium, which give great stats. It's a real positive for the stadium, in my opinion. They've got a lot of traditions at UT. Of course, they got the Hook'em Horns. They've got Bebo, the big longhorn that comes in. They've also got the most garish, awful band uniforms in the world. These burnt orange numbers are so bad that even Slim Whitman wouldn't wear them. This. What do you think of the color burnt orange?
Hate it.
It's belongs on sunsets and nowhere else.
The concession stands at UT are average to slow. That's probably because they do what a lot of stadiums do, which is farm out the service to local charities. Now, it's a great idea and concept, but it doesn't work so well for big games, particularly when number 10 Notre Dame comes to town and brings all its boozy frat boys with them. As I said, this game was the 2016 home opener, and the number 10 Irish were coming to town. It was a big game, and we were stoked. Luckily, we had a hookup, and we got our tickets at face value, which was still $155 for lower level of the top tier. But they were good seats regardless, and we had a great view for the game. So the worst thing about our seats was actually just getting to them. As we were going up through the concourse to get to our seats, somebody passed out. And that concourse came to a dead stop. It was packed with people. As we sat there in the sweltering heat, I thought to myself, if there was a true emergency, you're never going to get out of here. You're going to die. And that's not the most comforting thought when you're at UT, given its unfortunate history of towers and gunmen. Fortunately, we didn't have any of those problems, and once we got to our seats, everything was fine. You see a lot of cowboy boots at UT and in Texas in general, both on the men and the women. The one thing that I was surprised was a lot of Texans wear these crisply white, starched white shirts, and they wear them for everything, formal or informal. But the heat was too much for the guys today because I saw mostly golf polos and not the white shirts. So this was a big game for UT, home opener, number 10 Notre Dame coming to town, and they did not disappoint. They certainly showed up. Note that, Clemson. They jumped out to a 31-14 lead, and they were cruising, but Notre Dame clawed their way back. In fact, the Dale Gribble sitting next to me just about lost his mind when Notre Dame had a late interception and touchdown to go up 37-35. It was then when we got treated to the rarest of scores in college football, the block PAT. So the Longhorns blocked the extra point, scored 2 points. We're tied 37-7. Here comes overtime. So all tied up we were, and off to overtime we went. They traded touchdowns on the first set of possessions, but then the Irish were held to a field goal, and the Longhorns scored to win the game. The place went nuts. We had a great time, a fantastic experience. It was one of the best games I've ever been to live.
Hello, So Many Stadiums. This is Cliff Triplett. I'm here with Kurt, an Aggie, and Brittany, a Sooner, to talk a little bit about UT, that is Texas football. The question here is, what would you attribute the success of the Longhorns over your institutions? Why are the Longhorns so much better than A&M and Oklahoma?
Yes, Texas. A lot of people don't realize there was a time when Texas was the flagship institution in our state, and even dating back, they had a really powerful program in the late 1800s, early 1900s. More modern though, if you check that record over the last 30 times that we played, we split evenly 15 apiece. More recently, the last 6 years that we were in the Big 12, we split 3-3. So, but definitely they have history on their side.
And luckily, OU's come up on top in the most recent years.
Is it harder to get into UT than A&M?
I know and work with a lot of Longhorns, and they're good people. Actually, a number of them that I know are pretty smart too, and they've sent their kids to A&M.
I agree. It's definitely a great school, high academic program, especially in their business schools. I think they're ranked number 4. So they definitely have very strong academic requirements.
So it feels like you guys would cede the academic, that UT has a stronger academic reputation and is a better school.
I wouldn't cede either one of those.
Let me ask you this: what would you say is your favorite Matthew McConaughey film? He's a famous UT alum. I'm assuming you guys are big fans.
Oh, is he a UT alum? I didn't realize that. I don't have much of an answer for that. Interstellar was okay.
No, I mean, he's in a lot of good films, but his attitude's just different. Different kind of animal. He's the strangest guy on every movie you will ever watch. If he's on it, just watch him. It's weird. He's weird.
What would you say made the rivalry special, and what would you think it would take to get UT and A&M back together again? Is A&M afraid to play UT, or is it vice versa, that kind of thing?
I'd say more vice versa. I mean, if you looked at the record since we left, and we don't have anything really, to brag about. We haven't competed for conference championships, but when we left the Big 12 to go into the toughest conference in the country and the strongest division in that conference, I don't think many would have thought that Texas would have a worse record than us. But they put up three losing seasons. I don't know if they'd want any part of us right now, but it makes too much sense. I mean, the 2 largest universities in the state, it'll happen. And I miss it. It was always great if you were having a tough season, you had your rival at the end, and if you just won that game, it took a little of the downside off of that season. And so I look forward to it happening again, and I'm sure that it will.
A question for you: in terms of rivalries, which is bigger, Oklahoma State or UT?
Definitely UT. I mean, Oklahoma State, it's all kind of fun and games. We always root for one another if we're not playing one another. But it's definitely a much larger rivalry and bigger competition when we're talking UT. It's a big spectacle. It's been there for decades. So I think it's a little bit more special. The OSU rivalry is just more of a who's bigger in the state, and I think it's an obvious win there.
Final game day summary for UT. DKR is a lot of fun. Great big stadium, big time college football, and usually they have a good team. Just schedule your game for later in the year. You don't want to go in September. It's probably too hot. And there's two things you got to remember. One, hook 'em horns. And two, OU sucks. That's all for So Many Stadiums. We'll see you in the cheap seats.
You know, you gave lifetime rate, which by the way, it wasn't 35, it's 37 wins that we have, Cliff. So check your sources, please.